We are RADcast.
I came here to be an actor when I was 20, which was 1990, and I spent the first 10 years basically being, doing some on-camera stuff and being a voiceover actor, and essentially I was a broke film actor producer by the time I asked my friend Brian Singer for a job answering phones on the movie you're about to see. And I had been a fan of the comic books when I was a kid, and I had read them of the Chris Claremont sort of John Byrne era X-Men, and I really knew the world very well. And I had made this little film that Brian had produced, and so we sort of knew each other's filmmakers as well, though he was successful and I was not. And we were driving to a creature effects house at one point, and come on in, welcome. So we were driving to a creature effects house at one point, and he couldn't figure out how to get the word X-Men into the film without it sounding ridiculous. And he tried this, and he tried that, and he tried this, and he had a bunch of other script problems. The script's going to kill my career, and this is horrible, it's a disaster. And so I came up with a scene, and I said, well, why don't you have a scene where, Wolverine's walking across the mansion grounds, and he sees Cyclops. This is not in the movie, but and Cyclops is playing basketball, and they get into a one-on-one pickup basketball game, and they're throwing the ball back and forth and getting more and more heated, and finally Wolverine sort of pops the ball with his claws and chucks it down and says something to the effect of, well, why don't you and Xavier and all you little X-Men go and do what you're going to do and leave me the hell alone. And he was like, and Brian said, yeah, good, go write that scene for me. And which I did not expect, and to which I thought he was kidding, so I didn't. And then he called me the next day and said, "Where's my scene?" And I said, "Oh, I'm working on it now." I spent a day, honing this scene, and make a very long story short, he ended up putting it in the movie and started bringing me to story meetings with the studio, saying, "Just sit in the back, don't say a word, listen to what everybody says, and for God's sakes, don't tell anybody you're writing the movie." I said, okay. so it was me, Peter Rice, who now runs Fox Television, Tom Rothman, who you probably all know and dislike Tom Rothman, and Brian, and we put together the movie. By the time the studio found out that I had been working on the film, I'd already written about half of it, and they were forced to make a deal with me. So they paid me $35,000, which is not only the Guild rewrite minimum fee, but the lowest anybody who's ever written a $75 million movie has ever been paid in history. And again, this is a much longer story, but I ended up getting sole credit on the movie. It came out and it opened, the day that it opened, it came out Friday, and the next day I was in Toronto, and Brian Singer called me in my hotel, and he said, "David, it's Brian." I said, what's up? How'd it go? And he said, I'm going to tell you the 3 biggest opening days in history. And the first is Jurassic Park: The Lost World, and the second was some other movie, and the third is X-Men. And that was the moment I sort of looked over at my wife, and that was the moment when I knew things were probably going to be okay. So I was there for every second of this film. I made up dialogue and whispered it into Brian's ear so he could tell Halle Berry to say it, or whatever. We would just be changing the thing on set constantly, and I know about every fight, every scene. I know who wrote every line of dialogue. They're not all written by me. There are lines by Joss Whedon, there are lines by Andy Kevin Walker, there are lines by Brian Singer, there are lines by the studio. There are speeches by Chris McQuarrie, although I did do a lot of work. So afterwards, I'll do a Q&A, and I can basically talk as long as people can stay awake. And you can ask about that. You can ask about Snake or Guyver or whatever you like. But, and then apparently somebody's brought a copy of X2, and if you want to continue on with that afterwards, I can sort of set you up for how that happened as well. But in any case, I appreciate you taking a look at our little student film that Brian and I made. It was a much tighter budget than we needed for this size of a film. It starred a then unknown Hugh Jackman, whose life was also changed by this movie, and I hope you enjoy it.